We still have several questions floating around there in the ethers. You know, that question, what is it that's present when stillness and movement meet? Where are we when we find ourselves in a place that's beyond the thrall of our mind, those three levels of existence, where we find that we have nowhere to rest, no belief system, no roost for the mind to come back to, which leaves us in the place the only place to go is to recognize that there is no such thing as mind. But, you know, it's not often that the Divine Mother is quoted, but Divine Mother had several sayings that she would often repeat. One was, you have to stand firm in the vision of God. And she used to say, even if you have not one friend, you have to be true to your God self. Now, in this place that's beyond the mind, where our mind can grab a concept or a thought of what God might be, there's an opportunity to play. And so, as you well know, the stories are the ingredients that we put into the alchemical pot. So let's see what these several simple stories do for us. Now, Hamid was a brigand, a rogue. He would accost caravans on the road of the rich merchants who had to follow the path through the mountains, and he would rob them of their riches. But Hamid was tall and handsome, and he was somewhat of a Robin Hood. He would steal from the rich and give to the poor. So in the coffee shops where the ordinary people gathered, he was revered somewhat, and his exploits were talked about with great relish. But Hamid was also very virile, and there were many a widow who missed the conjugal bliss of wedded life, were visited by Hamid from time to time. And not to mention those wives whose husbands were away in far-flung places. But he never deflowered young maidens. Anyway, they were usually had chaperones or brothers or fathers who took good care of them. But Hamid had his abode in a cave high up in the mountains, and his only companion was his magnificent horse, which was a beautiful black stallion. But one evening, when Hamid had just roasted a little creature that he had caught over a spit for his dinner, his beautiful stallion whinnied outside the cave door and to indicate that someone was approaching. So, to Hamid's great surprise, a shrouded figure came and entered his cave door. So when the cloak was taken off and he had threatened this being, "Who are you?" and had his knife out ready, and this feminine voice said, "Oh, it's Fema, don't you remember me? You visit me from time to time when my husband's away. And I'm so tired of my husband, he's a real dolt. So I've decided to come up here and be your companion and take care of you." And she looked around the cave and she said, "Oh, we'll fix this up. I've got some beautiful carpets that we can hang on the walls here." And she started to fluff around, changing things around in Hamid's cave. Well, Hamid's eyes got bigger and bigger with horror at the thought of this. And he was in quite a dilemma. What would he do? Because he said, no, you can't stay here. This is a bachelor's No, she said, "I'm here to stay. I'm going to domesticate you. I will take care of everything. You can go off and do your brigand stuff, and I will wait here and cook for you and prepare everything for you when you come back." And of course, Hamid was absolutely horrified. But then he had a thought, and he put himself up to his full, magnificent 6-foot+ height, and he said, "Well, if that's the case, if you're going to be a brigand's companion, you have to learn the ways of a brigand. Tonight, we're going off to slit a few throats. Down by the wayside, there's a caravan coming, and I'll teach you the ways of a brigand." And with that, he spat. She recoiled in horror. Well, he grabbed her by the arm, insisted that she put her veil and her cloak on. "Come," he said, "it's time for us to go." And he hustled her up onto her horse, and he got on his magnificent black stallion, and he let her lead the way down the path in the mountain. Well, as she was trotting along, she had her horse go faster and faster, and it took a little while for Hamid to catch up with her. But then she kept riding ahead of him, and when they came to a crossroads, all of a sudden she started to gallop off in the direction of town. She said, "Where are you going? Where are you going? I thought we were going to go off and slit a few throats and I'll show you the way." He didn't hear what she said. All he saw was the dust of her horse's hooves as she rode off down the mountain. So he immediately turned his black stallion around and rode up back the path to his cave and put his little rabbit back on the spit and sat him down with a brew, himself down with a brew, sighed a great sigh of relief and said, "I took care of that one. That was a close call." And then there was a king. His name was Hatim Tai, and he was renowned for his kindness, and he was revered throughout the land, a land that was prosperous. People loved him. When they came to him with any of their problems or requests, he listened to them with great care, in fact a tenderness, and he fulfilled as best he could the needs that they brought to him. But there was a neighboring kingdom with a monarch by the name of Jalil, who was jealous, who coveted Hatim Tai's kingdom. And so one day Jalal sent a messenger to Hatim Tai and said, "I'm going to take your kingdom from you. I'm going to kill you and take over your lands. You know that I have an army greater than yours, even though you have many, many worthy warriors." But when the messenger went off, Hatim confronted all his generals and his viziers and his advisors, and they were all ready to fight for him to the death. they told him that they would take up arms and they would fight for him till the very end of their lives. But Hatim Tai said, no, no, no blood shall be shed here. Jalil wants my life only. He wants to take over this kingdom. So I will leave. I will be happy to take up the robe of a dervish and ensure that no blood is shed here. And that's what he did. Taking a few dates and some nuts, he donned the patchwork cloak of the dervish and went off into the forest. Jalil, with his army, marched into the city and took over the palace of Hatim Tai. No blood was shed, but he became a cruel tyrant, taxing the people to the nth degree, bleeding them dry to fill his own coffers with riches. But the people still revered Hatim Tai. They knew what sacrifices he had made for them, so they would never ever divulge to the tyrant where their king had taken refuge. But then one day, in the court of Jalil, he was laughing and causing laughter amongst those of his followers about the coward that Hatim Tai was. But amongst those who were present, there was one of the previous advisors of Hatim Tai, and he was bound to speak up. And he said, "You err and are wrong. Our monarch was a man of great kindness and thoughtfulness, and he relinquished his throne so that no blood could be shed here." But this only made Jalil very angry, because his own messengers had come back and heard the whispers in the town's places, and all of it was in disfavor of his own way of rule, and lauding and whispering about their love and reverence for their monarch, Hatim Tai. So Jalil put a bounty on Hatim Tai's head. He said that he would give bags of gold to anyone who brought Hatim Tai to him. Now it so happened that there was a day when, in the cave in which Hatim Tai had taken up his residence, that an old woodchopper and his wife came by gathering wood, and he could not but overhear what it was they were saying. The husband was saying to the wife, "There is so little wood now to gather, and I wonder how it is that we're going to survive." And his wife said, "Yes, the way this tyrant taxes us and has bled us dry. But you know, if we were able to take the bounty that he has put on Hatim Tai's head, we would live comfortably for the rest of our lives." The husband said, "Do not speak like that, wife." But Hatim Tai had overheard what they were speaking, and he came out of his cave and said, take me to the king. Take the bounty that's on my head and live comfortably. No, 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 said the hut, do not listen to my old shrew of a wife. But just then, being exposed, some of Jalil's army came by and captured all three of them and took them to the palace of this tyrant. When they came before the tyrant Jalil, Hatim Tai said, give these old people the bounty that's on my head. Let them live in comfort for the rest of their days. But when Jalil, the tyrant, heard these words, something moved in him. It was like pieces of a puzzle came together, and he had a change of heart right in that moment. And turning to Hatim Tai, he said, take back your kingdom. I no longer covet that which you have. And that's the way it happened. The tyrant Jalil returned to his own place, leaving the kingdom of Hatim Tai, which again prospered under this benevolent, enlightened monarch. The alchemy of stories, their disparity disallowing us from putting them together in our mind, leaves us only with the possibility that their chemistry, their alchemy, can bring forth from us awareness, an expression of what it is that occurs when that alchemy takes place in us, like all the ingredients that life brings for us. Once upon a time, we'd put those experiences together, mix them or let them meet with the conditioning of our previous experiences to bring perhaps some thought, oh yes, in its higher form, that's God's business, or that's life, or I can't do anything about that, or I'm helpless. But now in this place, we have the possibility, the sublime possibility of having all the experiences, like the stories, go in like stillness and movement, meet, to bring forth an expression, an awareness. So, having this forum, we have a chance. So the question is asked, what is it that arises for you to mind so that it can be expressed as to what the chemistry of these stories have evoked in you. Not of our mind, not as an understanding, what arises for you from these stories? Could it be to do with that simple statement of Divine Mother? Even if we have not one friend, we have to be true to our God self. Stand firm in the vision of God. Or as is the way, with what it is that's happening right now in our world. It's like a vast cauldron that's bubbling. So maybe we have to let these stories brew a while in our cauldron. Because Divine Mother had another saying. She said, I've transmitted all those like tapes in you, and they'll come out when they need to. Could it be? Could it be?